Midnight Sun here to talk about the differences between Diablo 3 Console Edition and PC Edition. So, to get started, I hope you are considering purchasing one of these two editions if you're thinking about playing Diablo 3, as that's really the only legal way of accessing it. Now, if you have the Console Edition already and you're kind of interested in the PC Edition, this might be, that little push through you need to get started. If you're on the PC Edition and considering the Console Edition, let's look at some of the key differences that you might not be aware of. So let's start with deal breakers. Now, if you're interested in playing Diablo with a controller, currently the only option is with the console edition of the game. If you're playing on PC, I have found no real good workaround method for playing it, and you will still require a mouse and key in some parts. There are ways to bind certain controllers, like a Scuff Gaming controller, but that is a very complicated process and it doesn't really work all that well. So that means that you would have to get used to moving on mouse and key, which for somebody like myself didn't take too long. I had already played a few games with mouse and key, but if you're entirely new to the process, it can be very intimidating, and there's still moments where I don't really like playing hardcore on the PC edition because I have trouble with the mechanics of keyboard and mouse. Now, for those who used to keyboard and mouse and are currently maybe playing Diablo on it, you might kind of laugh at my skill here. You can see I'm fumbling around here just trying to get used to the mechanics of keyboard and mouse. Now, it's for that reason that when I'm on the PC edition of this game, I tend to play the spin to win kind of versions of the games, the builds or anyway, because it's easy to move my mouse in the direction and hold down right click so that I don't have to deal with too many complicated mechanics. So let's talk more about the differences between these two games, and surprisingly, the reason for these differences isn't for graphical improvements. In order to get the best builds in the game, you need to be augmenting, and in order to augment, you need to have a legendary item or an ancient item, and then you need to have some gems and some Whispers of Atonement. So gems is a huge process in terms of getting these items, which means you have to do a lot of crafting and upgrading of these gems to get to the highest rarity. On the PC edition, you can see that I have a lot of gems here. I can simply go over and select the maximum amount of gems that I need to craft. In this case, it would be emeralds. And I can adjust the number, and then I can just keep spamming the craft with that large number. I've overlapped the console edition to show you the difference. You can see that I'm just spamming the button over and over and over again, waiting until my hands get tired or cramped out. There's no way to make this any faster, and you just kind of have to sit there and spam. I've done 900 gems on the console before and literally had my thumbs get sore afterwards. One other small annoyance is when it comes to crafting items in the game. On the PC edition, you can craft multiple items at one time, whereas on the console edition, you have to sit there and spam, wait for the animation to get finished, and then check the item to see if it's an ancient item. This can be done significantly faster, especially in bulk amounts. Now, this isn't too big of a deal, as most of the time you're crafting one or two items anyway, but in particular to try and get those ancient items, it can be a real pain to sit here and spam and wait each time for an item to finish. Let's talk about one of the most frustrating things in the game, which is blood shards. We see that the PC edition version of the game, if I walk over to the blood shards, it simply picks up to the maximum amount of space in my inventory. And then it tells me exactly how many blood shards are on the ground. So if I want to go and spend some of those blood shards and pick them up, I simply spend what I need to, and then I go back and pick up the rest. For the console edition, you do not know exactly how many blood shards are on the ground. You can take a rough guess, but then you have to go over and spend blood shards over and over again until you think you have enough space to pick up the blood shards on the ground. Now, despite the fact that my inventory is emptied, not completely, but enough to where it should be able to pick up some blood shards, the console edition does not let me pick up those blood shards. This is highly frustrating for doing things like the Altar of Rites, where you require a specific amount of blood shards, such as like 1100 blood shards. I don't know how much I have to go and spend in order to get it exactly right, and I might not even get it exactly right. Also, when upgrading our gems, you can see that on the PC edition, anytime I want to teleport to town, I can hit the teleport button, even while upgrading gems, and on the console edition, I have to wait until I finish doing the upgrade before I can teleport to town. Now, this isn't too big of a deal, but it does impact your time in terms of the long run. Next, let's talk leaving the game. Now, the console edition of this game actually has a plus here. If you want to leave the game, it doesn't matter where you're at in the game. If you are on the middle of a map and you've got enemies all around you, just hitting pause, exit game, loads you out. In terms of the PC edition, you can log out pretty quickly if you're in town, but if you are surrounded by monsters, it gives you a 10-second cooldown or a timer before it actually exits the game, which can mean that if you're surrounded by enemies, your character could die if you're on hardcore, or it's just an annoying time constraint. Now, to fix that, you'd have to teleport to town, which can also add a little bit more of that time, back into the game as well. So, console edition actually has a win here. It makes finding things like the Caverns of Frost relatively easy. One other positive for the console edition is when it comes to getting the Staff of Herding, you only need 3 of the required items instead of the PC edition's 5. Now, the final major difference is in the paragon. On the PC, if I hold down Control and right click, I can go through and fill these all up to the max, or when it comes to my main stats like Dexterity and Vitality, I can fill them up to about 100. This makes completing the process very simple and easy. On the console edition, there is no option. It does speed up a little bit faster towards the end, but when you have a lot of paragon, especially like the 2000 plus range, this is just kind of an annoyance. You're sitting there and just holding the button down, listening to that little da-da-da-da-da-da as it goes up. So that was all of the major differences between these two games. There's some minor ones in there, but that should help you in deciding if you want to play either the console edition or the PC edition. If you like this kind of content, please let me know by considering to like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.